Sarah Lum coming back and getting off the field at Berkeley at 5 o'clock, trying to get here at 6. It's a tall task. So I want to welcome everyone. Our general objective of the evening is to hopefully leave here with a deeper understanding of the recruitment process. We are extremely lucky to have an elite panel of successful coaches who approach their discipline as true professionals and represent 4 different levels of collegiate baseball. We'll start off with some general questions, and then once we get through the general questions that we've scripted, we will open it up to student athletes and parents. We will have Keith Littlejohn running around with a microphone to the crowd, and you can direct your questions to the panel. But before we get started, I first want to start by saying thank you to the panel for coming tonight, because they took a lot of time out of their busy schedule to be here, and to get 4 head coaches from 4 respected universities and colleges to be here tonight in one place, one setting is we're very lucky to have that. So can we give them a round of applause right now? So really quick, we're going to meet our panel. I hope the panel doesn't mind a couple pictures. I have to apologize in advance to Stefan. I tried to find pictures of you. He just got the job at Menlo and was unlucky in finding a picture. But we're going to start with Coach Cummings, head baseball coach at San Francisco State. He is representing Division II. He's a Santa Clara alum, 24-year coaching and playing stint at his alma mater, including a 4-year run as head coach from '97 to 2001. During his stint at Santa Clara, the Broncos were WCC champions in '94, '96, and '97. He received bids to the NCAA regionals in '88, '94, and '97. For 6 seasons prior to being hired at San Francisco State, Coach Cummings was the head baseball coach at Walla Walla Community College of Washington. Prior to Walla Walla, Coach Cummings was an assistant baseball coach for 2 seasons at Washington State in Coleman. I had to cut a lot of his bio because it didn't end, so sorry, Coach. Our next coach that's joining us, representing the Division I level, is Greg Moore, the associate head baseball coach. He's a USF alum. Greg spent 8 seasons as an assistant for the Dons before leaving during the summer of 2009 to become the pitching coach at the University of Washington. During his year overseeing academics in Seattle, the baseball team turned in the highest grade point average of any Husky team during the 2009 semester. Coach Moore originally joined the staff at USF in 2002 as a volunteer assistant. After that season, he was promoted to pitching coach and recruiting coordinator. He was also in charge of overseeing the team's academic progress and helped lead the Dons to a 3.19 grade point average, an all-time high. A quote from the head baseball coach at USF, Nino Geritano, sums up Greg as one of the finest young energetic pitching coaches to emerge at the Division I coaching level in quite some time. Greg's individuality, tireless work ethics, and unbelievable temperament make him one of the finest. I should be at Greg right now. Somebody remind me if I don't get the slide up there. Unbelievable temperament that make him one of the finest pitching coaches, not only in the WCC, but in Division I baseball. Our next coach is Coach Doug Williams, who represents California Community College of San Mateo. Coach Williams began his coaching career in 1990 at the College of San Mateo as an assistant coach to Coach Nochi, a position he held during the last 3 seasons of Nochi's 31-year tenure at the college. Williams also coached a professional league in Italy. In 1993, he led his alma mater, Colmont High School, to a CCS Division II championship, then went on as an assistant coach and pitching coach at USF. When the CSM job opened in '94, Williams returned to the Bulldogs. His 18-year career at CSM, he is 540 and 218, and is 7-time recipient of the Coast Conference Coach of the Year Award, most recently winning the award in 2009. During his tenure, 204 out of 213 players have transferred to 4-year schools or signed professionally. Notable players, Scott Feldman and Daniel Nava. Our next coach representing NAIA is Stefan McGovern and his assistant David Tufo, who actually played for me at Burlingame High School. Stefan enters his first year with the Oaks. He's been an assistant coach with Metro State College of Denver since 2009. As the hitting coach, McGovern led the Roadrunners to 8.7 runs a game last season, good enough for 6th in the nation, while their .330 batting average was good enough for 17th in the country. You're supposed to remind me. Somebody's supposed to remind me. Multitasking. Before his success at Metro State, Stefan helped guide Santa Barbara City College as an assistant and as a player. Enjoyed a storied career as an outfielder, playing his first 2 college years at Santa Barbara, then joining San Francisco State for his last 2. It's hard for me to say this, but he is an alumni from Bellarmine. But next we have a local Peninsula boy, Chris Petrini, left-handed pitcher, received an athletic scholarship to Cal, played alongside Tony Renda. Graduated in 2010, recorded as you can see, a 2.08 ERA in 47 2/3 innings this season with 53 strikeouts. Pretty good, Chris. Baltimore Orioles, nice. I'm gonna see you in the bigs. No? Hopefully, okay. And as you guys, I'm sure, are all excited to have back with us, Tony Renda. It doesn't, the list goes on, but as a freshman, Tony had one of the best freshman years in school history at Cal, earning All-American. Tony becomes only the 3rd Bear in school history to garner Pac-10 Player of the Year honors. He was also named first team All-Pac-10 for the 2nd year in a row, led the Cal Bears to the College World Series in Omaha, led the Bears in average, 332 average, 88 hits, 44 RBIs, was a 2009 high school All-American, both the San Mateo County and West Coast Athletic Player of the Year, leading his team to the CCS title. He was also first team All-State by Cal High Sports and Max Preps, and was drafted in the 42nd round by the Los Angeles Dodgers. And Tony broke a record that was held here for 24 years by Greg Jeffries with most hits in his career. So, with all that being said, I hope that you guys realize how lucky we are and the opportunity we have tonight. I'm going to transition this over to the legend, the voice of Sarah High School. I think he does every sport, just about, aka our athletic chaplain, Mr. Ed Taylor.
Thank you, Coach. Let me move this a little. Nothing personal. No, it was a short trip. It didn't take a long time. I will give you my baseball bio. Okay, there, it's over. I played 0 games, never had the talent. That's why I admire you guys so much. Very tough sport, fun to watch, but the amount of talent it takes is impressive. Some perspective on moving on from where you're at in high school and playing at the next level. I mean, these are some overwhelming statistics. 7.3 million student athletes, fewer than 7% will play in college, and just over 3% will receive an athletic scholarship funding as part of their college package. Now, that's not there to deter you. In a sense, it's there to give you something to shoot for. To understand that, you know, you're gifted with talents and abilities, and you've worked hard to develop them, and just because you've worked hard, there's no automatic, I get to go to the next level. There's no automatic anything. And these gentlemen can speak to that far better than I can. But these statistics, again, are not meant to deter. They're just meant to wake you up, make you aware, give you something to shoot for, have that goal. And it's the hope that in the course of this evening, by asking these gentlemen your questions, you'll know how to better reach that goal of playing at the next level. So that it doesn't have to be I wish I would have done this differently. Maybe if I knew this, I would be able to do something differently. Okay, you're going to get the information you need from these gentlemen to go after the goals that I know you already have. But it's overwhelming just to look at that. Okay, and that's why Coach decided to set up this evening. Okay? It's your life. You can do anything you want with it. You're choosing baseball. Now let's help you get there. Okay? So, that being said, some of the areas that we'll talk about tonight in terms of moving on to the next level, admission requirements. Okay, it's a lot different in some respects from what I understand than just, I'm going to apply to college and see if I can get in. You know, student athletes have other requirements they have to meet, and scores, you know, on tests and things. That might be some of your questions that you'll be asking. Majors for athletes. You know, they always say you're a student athlete with the word student first. Okay, and so, you know, you're moving on to the next level where you get to declare a major, you get to study something that you're interested in. But what does it mean to be a student athlete, and some of the popular majors that you can choose from, and then what these gentlemen look for in a player. There's a lot of coaches out there, there's a lot of showcases out there, there's a lot of other things that will pump you up and tell you you're the best there is, because that's what they get paid to do. Okay? These gentlemen are here to give you the down. This is reality. This is the real life of what you need to do to move on. So that being said, let's open it up for questions that will all come from you. So this is your time to ask your questions to these gentlemen to help you achieve your goals. Who wants to start?
Why is it never a player?
Exactly. Well, actually, I've heard of this quite too. I ask them a lot of questions in class. I don't usually bring any responses either. That's a whole other story. Derek, somebody's brave, got a boy.
This would just be a general question for all you guys. What would be a day in life for one of your players during the season? Like what they do when they wake up and what they do when they go to sleep.
I'll start. Basically, you know, there's two seasons in a college baseball year: fall season, and then basically the competition season that we talk about. You know, basically in the fall, begin with all the NC2A manual is about this thick, and so I'm sure Greg and I don't know the whole manual. We have to take a test every year to go out and recruit and do things, but it's an open book, so it's pretty easy. But basically, in the fall season, there's a time where you can have 24 days of practice. So, rare baseball practice. And there's also times where there's conditioning, 6-on-1s we call them, where there's skill development, those type of things. But, you know, basically at San Francisco State and probably at these other programs where, you know, we're going to lift, do conditioning two times a week in the morning, 6 a.m. weights type of thing. Basically, kids will go to class then and then have practice 1, 2 o'clock, depending on what their schedule is. Usually 2 o'clock is when we start. And then, you know, then there's weights and stuff too. Other times along the time weight too. But that's basically the day. Freshmen at our place and like other schools have mandatory study hall. So there's 3 hours a week that they have to do with the study hall people, the academic support people. That's pretty common in most NC2A programs. I know even with Doug's program, CSM, there's study hall. So I think that's a big part of it. Talked about student athlete. If you're not eligible, you're not going to be able to compete. You know, there's a lot of different rules again about declaring your major, about progress toward your degree, those type of things. Where there are some different rules in Division II that I deal with than Division I, but there's still, like I said, the manual's this thick with different requirements and things. But basically during the fall, that's the program. Now during the spring, basically you're playing 50 games in Division II levels, 56 games in Division I. You know, more travel usually with Division I than say in our conference, mostly just in the area of California with our league. But you know, you're leaving on Thursday, going to play a series down in Southern California, whatever, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You know, again, you know, it's balancing your time, your students, your studies, and those type of things.
Well, first I'd like to thank Craig Giannino for putting this together, and certainly you players and parents, I hope you consider yourself fortunate to be around something like this, because it's not something that's an absolute at different schools, and to get this type of information I think is so valuable. And during the recruiting process, we run into so many parents that say, well, I wish I would have known. We get a lot of kids that bounce back from four-year schools that parents constantly mention that to us, that, you know, I wish I would have been able to ask these questions or had some insight to some of these issues. So, Craig, good job with this, and appreciate you all being here. The situation at a junior college is a little different than a four-year school in that we're not governed by the NC2A. So we have our own guidelines, which consist of what happens during the fall. In particular, is, you know, we're on the field 5 to 6 days a week, and we have unlimited, virtually unlimited time, practice time on the field, and coaches. So, you know, we can run 5 to 6 coaches out there and practice on a typical day. Our kids will be in class from anywhere from 8 to 9 o'clock starting up until 11 o'clock, 12 noon, and then out to the field from 1 till about 4, in the weight room from about 4:15 to about 5:15. It's a pretty busy schedule, but it allows for an incredible amount of development, and we're on that schedule all the way from the end of August until mid-December. And we're able to play other community college teams throughout the fall, and then we start with our spring schedule. We begin practice again right after the first of the year. And we play usually on a Tuesday, Thursday schedule, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday schedule, practicing Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Our travel is generally within an hour radius of College of San Mateo. We do travel a couple of places a little bit further, but that would give you a good picture of what the schedule is like. And we're fortunate at College of San Mateo, 80% of the courses are offered before noon, and we get our student athletes in those courses so they can maximize the time out on the field.
All right. This is my first year in the NAIA. I came from the NC2A, so it's a little bit of an adjustment for me, but basically it gives me a little bit more flexibility because, like Coach was saying about the NC2A, there are a lot of regulations they have to follow. Our fall program is very similar. We live 4 times a week. We actually, this year, we did 3 6 a.m. weights a week, and then I asked the guys to do the 4th on their own weight program. But the practice schedule is very similar. The main change comes during the season, where we have a 50-game schedule as well. We play most weekends. We'll play a single Friday, doubleheader Saturday, and a single Sunday. The way our conference works is that there's only 2 other teams from California in our division. So there's two other schools from Oregon, and a school out of British Columbia, a couple schools in Idaho. So there is a lot of travel. Now, the fortunate thing that the benefit I have is that my team of 38 actually has the highest GPA in the school. So I really haven't had to worry about study hall to this point, just because usually it's not the case. But the fact is that Menlo likes to get our student athletes graduated within 4 years, and that's also not the case at some of the colleges I've been to, just because athletics, usually guys are taking 12 to 15 units. My guys are taking anywhere from 15 to 20, which they handle very well, surprisingly. So that they can get out and graduate within 4 years. So during the spring, 2 days a week lifting, and they try and get their class scheduled around practice time, which is also between 2 and 5.
I have a question. So it's about the academics. How many of your players, a lot of parents believe once they're in college, they make it. How many don't make it because of the academic schedule? the academic rigors of the college. How many of the kids can't do the baseball and the academics? Is that a problem in some of the schools?
We don't lose many at USF because they can't take care of business in the classroom. We're lucky, we recruit very slowly. We're able to go through a rigorous interview process, if you will, in the way we bring people to campus. But I would say that is the most difficult challenge for just about every freshman that walks onto campus. It's one thing to say you can play baseball. It's another thing to say that you can take care of school, and then to do both at the same time. Almost every freshman I ask at the end of the year or the end of the first semester, he'll say that the most difficult thing that he's had to do in the first 4 months or 8 months is balance his time. And when they say it to me, I understand what they mean. It's scheduling, being on time. It's not only that, but it's being excellent when you are there. Because we see guys who get to the field and their performance suffers because of that strain. So while they're making it, they're not doing it the way they want to oftentimes in their freshman year. So the skills that you're building, Coach, he's teaching you some things that are going to serve you not only throughout your life, but very soon when you get to that 4-year school, that 2-year school, it's very, very important that you figure out how to do one thing at a time, very systematically and methodically. So long story short, we don't lose many, but we really have to help develop those skills if they're not ready when they get to school.
I think the biggest thing, Rick, is time management. You know, I've had the opportunity, because I've been around for a long time, you know, I'm in Santa Clara, I've been at a small private school where, you know, classes are very small. I've been at Washington State and San Francisco State, which are huge universities, public universities, 30,000 students, you know, completely different environment. And it all comes down to what the academic support is in your department. I think that's the key, you know, having the mandatory study hall. You know, think about it when, you know, you're 16, 17, 18 years old, you think you're adults. You're not ready yet. Not to be mean. I have four kids. I have one that's 14 now. It's driving me crazy. But 8th grade daughter. So we're going through the high school thing. The only school that's not looking at is Sarah. I don't know. But the thing is the whole thing about time management. It's about, you know, having that support. And you're away from home the first time. You have to make choices on your own. You know, you're making the right choices in the dorm. You know, what's your roommate like? That type of thing. Plus now you've got a raving maniac coach who's on your butt, form, and you know, in your class now with 100 people maybe, or a room like this. You're coming from an environment where it's small classes, people care about you in this environment. You're very lucky to be in this environment. And now you go to a different school, you go to a big school, and it's an adjustment. You know, it's okay to ask for help. I think that's what happens. Athletes are very high-level athletes have egos, and it's tough for them sometimes to go to a tutor or go to a coach and say, "Hey, I got problems with that." You know, you got to do it. You know, that's how you're going to get through. And it's okay to do those things. It's okay to ask for help because it is a transition. You know, and everybody wants you to succeed. Everybody wants you to do well, but you know, you have to a lot of times initiate that. You're going to have coaches. You're going to have academic support people who want to help, but they can't read your mind all the time. You know, it's okay to ask for help.
Well, Mike keeps touching on the age factor here. I mean, he looks pretty good for 75, doesn't he? I mean, well, I started this job in '95 at San Mateo. In '97, I had a kid ineligible. And I swore at that time that I would never have another kid ineligible. He was looking to hit third for us in our lineup, so it was pretty important. But since that time, we moved on with some pretty good numbers of 204 and 213 kids that either transferred to 4-year schools or semi-pro. as you're hearing out of the first two, it's the same at our place, and then we call it T&P management, and it's the same for you, the kids who are playing here at Sarah. Your time and priority management is a key factor to your success, and you're either going to discipline yourself or others are going to have to discipline you. And if you learn that trick early, you got a real chance to be successful and perhaps exceed even expectations that you have for yourself right now. So we try to use that discipline word as a positive, that you are learning to discipline yourself and take control of your time and priority management. And when you apply these skills and include some of the motivation and intrinsic motivation that you use toward baseball, you can apply toward the classroom, you got a chance to be very successful. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you, and I know Coach Craig talks to you about visualizing. You get up with the bases loaded, you can see yourself hit one off the wall, but have you really visualized yourself putting that math test down on the teacher's desk when you're walking out and nailing that thing and getting an A on it? Well, if you do that, you visualize that, you get a better chance of studying the right way for that test, maybe asking for some extra help and getting it done. So the emphasis on the academics at San Mateo is the reason that we can talk about those numbers, because every school that we talk to in terms of you transferring on is going to ask first and foremost, can we have the transcripts? And they're going to run them by the compliance officer to see if they can in fact recruit you. And it's pretty black and white. You'll be in the yes pile or the no pile right there.
I just wanted to touch on, like, I've been approached by one of my players who has a learning disability, and great kid, but he just had some troubles figuring out how to manage all his responsibilities. And you know, Menlo being a big business school, it's one of those things where it can be overwhelming, especially when they're asking that most guys graduate in 4 years. And it does help when there are a lot of resources that the school has, and even though we have a small school, we actually have a couple programs where it's not really a tutoring service, but it's basically where collectively individuals that need to come and receive help from the school, they kind of offer it as a free resource to the students, to where they can come, and there's teachers and staff and you know, kind of like tutors there available. So it's not like it's a one-on-one thing, and it helps that there's other students that are there, just so they don't feel like they have to come out and do it on their own. It's an easier transition for them to do, but we do have the benefit of having our guys kind of in line where school definitely is a huge priority, and along with the GPA, we just haven't run into very many issues. But coaching at the NC2A level as well as JC, it definitely is hard, because when you go to a JC and you stay, I've had kids trying to go to my school at the NC2A level from the JC level, and they've maintained their eligibility, but they're not eligible to transfer because they don't have the units required to transfer to a four-year school. And I think that's why it's so important to not only just to remain eligible athletically, but to be able to transfer after 2 years at JC level is really important. And that's just where you're kind of getting away with doing the bare minimum. So that's why it's always a good idea, especially the first 2 years, of just getting established and doing your 12 to 15 units and making sure that they're counted.
I'd like to touch on one more comment on this topic, because we run into it all the time, and some advice coming from me, from my experience of meeting with parents and kids, would be it's very, very difficult as you're making that transition from high school to the next level to make a sincere, non-emotional evaluation of your son, and for you players, of yourself, to see where you are in terms of athletically, baseball-wise, academically, and where you are in the maturation process, or frankly, how mature you are. Can you handle a situation, living on your own, etc.? And to really sit down and be realistic about that, I find is one of the major challenges to families that we run into, and that I'm sure these coaches run into as well. And really do you a service, I think, if you can have that. Because, you know, if you're getting some letters or you're getting something from a showcase, you know, recruiting is flattering by nature. And so really do that, I think will save you some potential troubles down the line.
I just wonder if Tony or Chris would like to touch on having a recent graduate and a current college student athlete, what your number one challenges were, either like for Chris as a student athlete when you were in college, or Chris, I mean, Tony, now that you're currently still in school, what are your biggest challenges as student athletes?
I think my biggest challenge was my freshman year. You get in there, you're trying to prove yourself to the team, to the coaches, you're trying to meet your group of friends, and on top of all this, you got to deal with school. And at Cal, it wasn't the easiest thing to do. I'm not the smartest kid ever. But after that freshman year, when you kind of get into your routine and you know what's going to happen with practice, and you start meeting your friends and you get settled in, something that coach said to me, or I've heard people say before, is the hardest part is getting into the school. Once you're in, the coaches and the staff and all our academic counselors are going to do everything they can to make sure you stay there for 4 years or however long you need to get out. Because with all the rules going on in NCAA and Division I and stuff like that, coaches are getting scholarships taken away and are getting in trouble when kids aren't graduating and transferring out and stuff like that.
Yeah, you know, after my freshman year, I had a little bit of a wake-up call. When I first started out, I really had trouble going to class because once you're in college, you don't have to go. It's your choice. Go to class or don't go to class. And most of my classes my freshman year were in rooms twice the size of this with 300, 400 students. And the professor's never going to know if you don't show up. But when you get your report card after your first semester at school, and you're afraid to tell your parents that you got a 2.4, you know, it wakes you up, and you realize that you have to go to class, and you have to put in the time, you have to do your work and turn it in on time if you want to keep playing. What is it ineligible? 2.0 is ineligible. Actually, I think it's 1.9. And, you know, we have some guys that have some trouble with it, but I know in my recruiting process, one of the things they sold me on was in Esky, our head coach's 10 years before I got there, he had never had a player ineligible. So, like Chris said, they have advisors, they have a lot of support that get you into classes that you need to be in and get you through it. The hardest part is getting in. So once you're in, most important thing, go to class, do your work, and you know, put in as much work as you do on the field, and you'll be all right.
Mr. Littlejohn has the microphone, so if you have questions, raise your hand.
My question would be, the living circumstances are different in each school from what I understand. And what are the requirements for each school, where the student lives, on or off campus? What are the rules behind that and being a student athlete? I assume that's a factor in that.
Well, in our particular case, at San Francisco State, there's no requirement for freshmen to live on or off. We highly recommend that our freshmen live in the dorms and get that experience. You know, we're unique where we are. We know where our campus is. Where Park Merced, which is a private housing area, is right next door to campus. So when we have our freshmen, all our freshmen that we've brought in and recruited live in the dorms, in the student housing, and then probably another 60 to 70% of our players live in the Park Merced complex, which is right next to campus. So, you know, that's something for us that we highly recommend for our freshmen. There's no requirement from the school. You know, if we had a kid from Daly City or something want to live at home, then, you know, that would be fine. But we highly recommend. So to get that college experience, get away from home, you know, that type of thing, get that whole thing. You know, when I grew up in Monterey, and I went to Santa Clara, so I was an hour and 15 minutes away. I could have been a million miles away. But, you know, I know some kids think, oh, I got to get it, you know, I got to go to the East Coast or wherever. it really doesn't make a difference, you know. It's nice to be close to home, so there's that security, but you're going to make your own choice and own decisions.
Yeah, our school's a little different. If we recruit locally, like say, you know, we're recruiting Sarah kids, anyone within a 30-mile radius is able to either live at home or get an apartment in the area as a freshman or as a sophomore. They can still choose to live in the dorm. We have a couple dorms on campus, which is kind of nice because it's right across the street from the baseball field. But anyone outside that 30-mile radius is required to live on campus for their freshman and sophomore years. So I actually have 80 to 90% of my team living on campus, and that's including juniors and seniors, just because, you know, I mean, Atherton, you know, along with every other place in California, is pretty expensive. So it's just really convenient because it is a smaller campus that they're able to just, you know, be, you know, half a block away from the field, and everything's pretty accessible. So that's really the only major difference, is that anyone outside that radius has to live on campus for their first 2 years.
USF is very similar to Menlo in that we require all of our freshmen to live on campus. As a sophomore, you can go off campus to get a private apartment. And I laugh because our guys will be excited after that freshman year to go off campus, and I'll say, yeah, but you're probably living closer to your classes than you were when you lived in those dorms. And they live. We have 23 players that live 1 block outside of our right field wall within a 1 or 2 block radius. So I encourage you, if possible, as student athletes, to live on campus that first year, even if you are within that 30-mile radius. It's a special experience. You'll meet people from all different parts of the country, as you know. And as far as once you get to school, what we do, and I think many schools do, is we'll put you with another baseball player. And some schools, I know, will try to pair athletes together, but we like it because you're on the same schedule. Unless you're a pitcher and you're with a position player, pitchers are up early lifting. Position players are wishing they could room with another position player because they're waking them up early in the morning. But NCAA doesn't allow us anymore, or doesn't allow schools anymore, to put entire groups of athletes in one dorm. I think University of Arizona may have ruined that a few years ago, but you will be in the same neighborhood oftentimes as other athletes. Please live on campus. It's a great experience. I wouldn't leave. I stayed there all 4 years, and they were kicking me out. It was too convenient. The food was too convenient.
Well, we don't have the dorms at CSM, but we encourage our athletes to live with the cheerleaders, actually. That's probably my best recruiting ploy of the night. You know, I find that some kids do want to get out of the house, and sometimes they don't want to tell their parents such, and vice versa. So, you know, every year we have probably 10 to 12 kids living in apartments right here on the campus. So it gives you an opportunity to live in an apartment, get some of that independence, and still be close enough to home. Some of those kids live, maybe their parents might live an hour, 90 minutes away. Some may live only 15 minutes away, but it's something that they want to do, and it works out.
Cal is in the same situation as USF, as in dorms. They basically force you to live in Unit 3, which is right across from the baseball field your freshman year. Kind of the same reasoning. They want you to meet different people. You live with another baseball player most of the time, or another athlete, so you guys are somewhat on the same schedule.
Yes. Do letters of interest to coaches or athletic directors carry any weight, indicating, you know, your statistics, maybe a video of the players playing? Do you get a chance to look at those, and do you utilize those in recruiting?
You know, with the advent of the internet, things have really taken off, and what these showcases are now, probably get literally 3 to 5 emails a day from kids all over the country with these scouting services and whatnot. But we do look at most of them. And from a general interest standpoint, if we find something in the position that we may be looking for, or somebody stands out for whatever reason, I think it is worthwhile. A lot of them get dumped right in the trash, but be persistent, and that never hurt anybody. And certainly video has become sophisticated enough now where you can get a pretty good read on some of the things you want to see, at least to generate some interest.
I think as far as the early sharing, YouTube has been great for us. It's very convenient, easy to put a YouTube link in the body of the email, click on it, and we can sit at our desk and take a look at you and decide where you'd slot in on our depth chart. So just in terms of keeping it simple on us, that's the best way for us to see you as quickly as possible, and then hopefully all colleges will follow up in some way to tell you if you should come to camp, maybe there's no interest, maybe we'd like to visit you, and on and on. I really think YouTube and keeping it simple is a great way to go as far as that initial interest and contact.
Yeah, I agree with Greg. I'm not a big scouting service guy. I get a lot of those, like Doug said. I think it's personal, and it's your own YouTube, and maybe you've gone out and had somebody professionally do a video of you, but I think it creates more interest with me if it's somebody who has at least looked up what my name is, and not just dear coach type of thing. At least you've taken 2 minutes to look on the internet and find out who the coach is and do those type of things, more than scouting services. Nobody here is a scouting service. They take money away from you. But I think that's what happens. We get so many of those. I get them from Florida, and I don't have out-of-state tuition, so I don't recruit anybody from out of state. So I get them from Florida, Ohio. I just delete. Now California, okay. Now I'm going to look and do those type of things. But I think it's important for you to sit down and kind of decide on what type of school, maybe your list of 10 schools and what types you're looking for and interest, and I think that's what would be more advantageous for our interest and for us to follow.
I think it's obviously it really helps. It especially helps when, say you're signed up for a showcase that's local and you find out who the coaches that are going to be there. You contact those coaches that you're interested in playing for. Say, hey coach, this is my name, and the most important thing is you would be surprised at how many emails, I'm sure these guys get them too, but it just got a name. There's no position, there's no information about the player, and those are the ones I delete because it doesn't tell me anything about you. Because like the coach was saying, when there's specific needs based by position. So if there something comes up where you're a position that I'm looking for, then I'm definitely going to look for you, and then it kind of I can also follow you from after that point of seeing you live. Big thing on video too is that it doesn't have to be 15 minutes. 2 to 3 minutes is fine, and it doesn't have to be game footage. I actually prefer it to be a practice setting because you can control it. You can go from the side if you're a hitter. You can go from behind the catcher or the pitcher's mound as a pitcher. And it's a lot better than trying to fit in that 3.5 minute at bat where you hit a home run and you're taking 8 pitches until you get to that, or a couple foul offs. And there's I'm not expecting guys to be professional editors, but it definitely helps when it's just straight to the point and kind of more of a practice setting with regards to the video.
Hello. Question about late recruitments. Last year we met a lot of players who were seniors, summertime, late June, and they would get late offers. Should students apply to a lot of schools, or how does that late recruitment process, like since we're in November, how does that process work?
The benefit of applying to as many schools as possible within reason is that a financial aid packages at some of the schools, especially the private, will line up better. If it's just about baseball, if it's just about finding the right fit, the application is not as important. But at most private schools, and Coach may be able to correct me at Menlo, you've got to get that FAFSA in, and you also have to have the application in to the school before they'll put your package together. That's the case in USF. I think that's the case across the WCC. So if baseball is the main driving force and money is not going to be as big of an issue, then I wouldn't worry about applications. I would err on the side of applying to a few extra schools and getting that FAFSA in when it comes out on January 1st, if that package has a chance to help out and if there's some need there.
I think in my situation, in the CSU, the Cal State system, you go on CSU Mentor, and it's the same application for all the campuses. So if you were to say to apply to San Francisco State and then Long Beach or Sonoma or somebody in June, all you have to do is go into the CSU Mentor, just redirect your application and pay that fee for that thing. So I think that's an important thing. I would apply to a CSU if you're thinking of any of the Cal States at all, just to have that in, and like Greg said, to get your FAFSA and those type of things in, and have those things so you can transfer them to a different school, if the case may be. I think with the late recruitment, I know there's such a big push for early signings and stuff now in Division I. The late recruitment, a lot of times, is going to help a school like mine, Division II, where there are a lot of good baseball players in California. There's no doubt about that. Not everybody can go Division I, and so I think that's the thing where you're going to find some interest. You're going to find some people looking for good players at that time. And it's kind of, I really don't do much in the early signing period now where I'm in Division II, because the Division I are running around crazy, and Greg runs around crazy to find the players, and now it's like, okay, now we can kind of see not who's left, but let the dust settle a little bit, and then kind of go and see what we have to do.
Yeah, I think everybody who's a baseball player in this room still in high school is hoping that they're going to achieve the highest level, which would be Division I, get that scholarship, which is a real commitment from that school. The reality of it is that it doesn't always happen, and the reality of what's going on in the recruiting process is fairly complex. You have dead periods where they can have no contact. You might get periods where you get a couple of letters and a phone call, and then all of a sudden hear nothing for 3 months. And it can be pretty stressful. I know that we run into that with kids that we're talking to all the time, and they're saying, well, if this doesn't come along, then this, we'll consider it. We understand that. That's the position we're in a lot of cases. One of the things that I want to keep in mind is that the early sign period has just closed yesterday. And then it gets going up again in the spring, and as was mentioned here, it can continue into the summer, and that becomes a pretty anxious time. One of the things is that if the community college is an option, you can sign up for classes at the community college and be on track and have your file set to go there, and then if 4 years comes along and meets your wants and needs, and you're feeling good about that, you can just move right into the 4-year situation and withdraw from the classes at the community college. It happens all the time, but at least you have yourself covered, and something to think about.
Another benefit I have at the NAI level is I don't have early or late sign periods. So along with what Mike was saying about not getting any early signs, we kind of just wait to see what players are remaining after the early sign period, and then that's when a majority of our recruiting is done. But basically what happens is when we get contacted by a player and we're interested in having them come, or after a workout, we'll advise them to apply to the school, because how Menlo works, and I'm sure it's very similar to USF, is that If you have a certain GPA, you can qualify for so much money academically. I believe it's if you have a 3.0, you can qualify for $12,000 academic. If you have a 3.5 or above, I think it's 13. So that's just academic money. But we have to get that in order before we can even consider giving you excess and athletic scholarship. So I always just tell players that if they're interested and they see them as Menlo as a place to that they'd like to go, just get that process rolling by getting the actual application process underway so we can see what kind of money they qualify for.
And also the thing is with Menlo, we have, it's called rolling admissions, so we can admit anyone at any time, and that is beneficial for us because of, you know, June rolls around, not sure what you want to do, but you can go online, fill out the application, and get admitted in a very short time period. We've had kids come on campus a week before school starts, say, yeah, I want to play ball here, and I apply, so they go to that admissions, they can take care of it, and by Thursday in class, they're in the school. But it is obviously more beneficial to do it sooner rather than later because at private schools, the sooner you can get your package together, the easier it is for admissions to give you whatever academically. And then, like Coach was saying, we can't offer any sort of athletic aid until we know what you can get academically. Like I said, it's much easier when that happens early on rather than later in the cycle because then it makes it more difficult to expedite the process when it happens, you know, May, June, over the summer. But like I said, with our situation, we have the opportunity to admit anyone at any time. So that's something to consider when looking at colleges when their admissions processes are and to what extent those may be.
I got a question for Tony Renda. Sorry for putting you on the hot seat, Tony, but first, congratulations on all your accomplishments. My family and I are big fans of yours. We've been watching you for a while. My question is, what is it that helped you to accomplish all your goals and become so successful?
As you all can tell, I'm not really the biggest, strongest guy. I'm like 5'8", 175 on a good day. So from a young age, I've had to, you know, kind of work harder and get after it a little bit more than people who are bigger and actually better than me. You know, when I was at Sarah, my typical day would be, you know, obviously go to school. But before school, I'd get up in the morning and I'd go work out, usually around 5:30 a.m. And then I'd, you know, sit through a day of class, and then if we had baseball practice, go to practice, and then after practice, I'd go to Skyline College and hit with a guy named John Patel. And that was pretty much every single day. I hit with him every single day just to, you know, stay ahead. And it really hasn't stopped since I got to Cal. Except, you know, I don't go see John because it's too far of a drive. But just every day I try to do something. I try to get into the weight room, do a little bit of extra buys, tries, forearms, something. And you know, I'll stay after practice, take extra ground balls or hit if I'm not happy with how I was swinging that day. But it really you know, everybody says if you want to be good, work hard. Well, yes, you have to work hard, but you also have to work smart. You got to know what you're doing, have a purpose, and really just get after it. And you know, my success is you know, it's been great and it's rewarding. And but you know, I haven't made it yet. I'm not playing at Chris Petrini never will be, but that day hasn't come yet. You just kind of, got to stay with where you are and in the moment, and keep pushing forward, trying to always get better. And I found that that's really taken my game to the next level and gotten me where I am. So.
This is for Coach Williams and all the other coaches. What would be the advantages of going to a JC and then the advantages of going to a 4-year? What are the differences?
Well, it's a good question. We run across it all the time. And I've coached at the 4-year level at USF, in fact, and one of the reasons that I came back to the community college level and continue to stay at the community college level is the amount of time and interaction you get to spend with players and on the field actually coaching. So from a developmental standpoint, the amount of time that you can spend on the field at the community college, I think it's a huge advantage. Let's face it, as hard as it is to admit, not everybody's ready. Not everybody's ready to step into a 4-year school and to compete against players that are 20, 22, in some cases 23, 24 years old. That's not a knock on you, it just may mean that you need to get into an environment where you're competing against kids that are 18 to 20 years old. So I think in that case, when you look at the baseball from a developmental standpoint, there is a real strong point to look at. Same thing goes from an academic standpoint. You run into a lot of kids that feel they can do it, and want to jump out into that 4-year school, but they really get blown away, and then end up transferring back. And that creates some issues with what you might need academically to transfer back out. I can give you a list of players that have done it and come back and transfer back out, and you might be surprised. Some real top players coming out of Sarah High School that, in fact, have gotten into situations that are not quite ready. So again, going back to that evaluation standpoint, but I think you really got to look at it and to understand the reality of how many freshmen actually go into those situations and really excel both academically and baseball-wise. And if we're talking about a game of repetition and getting in there and getting significant time, there are some special ones. The guys sit down at the end of this table, but it's not everybody that can do that.
You asked about advantages of going to junior college, and we're in the office all the time with parents and players, and they'll be surprised by how much we'll push junior college. I went to JC, I was at Long Beach City College, and for many, many reasons I would say JC is the way to go. It was for me. I remember my coach told me at one point about 3 weeks into the year, and I always remember, and it's a perfect example of how the truth motivates. He told the whole team that you're either here because you're not good enough or you're not smart enough. And then he turned to me and said, well, you're neither, and that's why you're here. I think he was joking, but it still resonated with me, and it was a great motivator for me, just like Tony talks about being too small. Well, I wasn't ready. It wasn't that I wasn't good enough, if you want to load that word, it just was that I wasn't ready. And it was the best progression for me. And Coach Williams, we have 2 players who will be in our program next year for Coach Williams' program. If you find the right place and you go about it the right way in the classroom, it could be for you what it was for me. It was the best decision I ever made in terms of career or baseball. And I would recommend it to anybody who is not ready. It's about the fit. You have to find the right fit at the right time. Take ego aside, put development first, and that's what will help you reach your goals, like those guys at the end of the table are working to do.
I'll say ditto. I did the same thing. I went to Monterey Princeton College, went to JC, then went to Santa Clara, graduated from Santa Clara. Nobody ever asked you down the road, well, where'd you graduate from? Well, you don't have to give your life academically, baseball-wise, to develop. You know, a lot of times we're shooting ourselves in the foot here. These college guys, four-year guys, but we have so many different rules about 24 practices, 20 hours a week. And there's a lot of limitations. Before I came back to the Bay Area, to San Francisco State, I was at a community college in Washington. I mean, we could practice all the time unless it was snowing. Of course, that's one reason I came back. But, and that's one reason Greg came back from UW too. But it's one of those things where you have chances to develop. You can play during the fall, games and things like that. You know, we in a squad, we play ourselves. It's different. You know, you have to be motivated, like Tony talked about. You know, you have to be motivating yourself. You can't become a great player if you're just going to practice 20 hours a week with the coaches. You have to put that extra time in and do, you know, when nobody else is watching, you're taking extra grounders, hitting, lifting, whatever it may be. That makes the difference.
Yeah, I played at JC at Santa Barbara, and I also coached there. And the one big advantage of JC is the cost. You know, you look at my tuition. I mean, at Menlo's, $36,000 for the year, not even including living expenses. And you know, I think I paid $10 a unit or $11 a unit back in '99 when I went to Santa Barbara. So I was able to save money, and I was also able to figure out that the major I thought I was going to have out of high school was completely wrong for me. And if I had gone to a 4-year right out of high school, it would have been a much more steep price to pay to find that out. I think the drawback on the flip side is that, you know, you go to a JC versus a 4-year, you got to establish yourself in 2 different programs now. So there's really, I mean, that's the one major issue. And I've been on the recruiting end for both JC and 4-year colleges. So it works for most people. It's just some people like to establish themselves in a 4-year program, so that way they're around their other players and coaching staff all of their 4 years. But I think the benefit is definitely with the costs and preparing you for the 4-year level if you're not at that time ready.
Follow up real quickly on that. It's gone from a whopping, you said $9 to $11 a unit, it's up to $26 a unit. So that's, I give all of my players a scholarship at that price. But I think one of the advantages of this early sign period that just went through, we had 4 guys sign early and accept scholarships this fall. One to USF, Greg Moore, one to San Jose State, one to UC Davis, and one to Oregon State. And not one of those kids had an offer out of high school. And so that is one of the advantages that you can look at, that things can really happen in a positive way if you get into the right situation and get it done academically.
Can you explain what a walk-on means?
A walk-on. Walk, tries out without any formal invitation.
Comment on your question, further develop that question. Can you explain a walk-on, recruited walk-on is? Explain what a recruited walk-on is and what that entitles you to or doesn't entitle you to.
Well, at our school, the biggest question that a lot of people will ask, and this happened at my previous school as well, is that some guys think that there's like a tryout the first week of school, and some schools do this depending on the recruiting needs. Say they needed 10 players and they were only able to get 7, so they'll have an open tryout. It was always kind of a mess in my history with it, just because you get about 200 kids and only 5 of them could really play. So I think that in terms of recruited walk-on, though, it basically means that you're getting recruited to play, but there's no money left for you scholarship-wise, athletically. So we try and get players that are going to at least qualify for some financial aid and some academic money, so that way they're not having to pay their full tuition on their own. But at least at at our school, if you're a recruited walk-on, it just means that you're not getting any athletic scholarship, but you are, you are a member. Once you're recruited, whether it's scholarship or no scholarship, you are a member of the team from day one.
This is one of my favorite questions because I think there are a lot of misconceptions about what a walk-on is. I would encourage you not to get hung up on the word because so many of our programs recruit based on timing. And sometimes the timing isn't right, even though the player is right for us. The fit is right for both. And I was scribbling some notes as Coach was talking, and I realized that last year's team that we had some success on the field. Our starting catcher, starting shortstop, starting second baseman, our starting left fielder, our Friday starter, who will most likely be a first-round pick, and then the first guy out of the pen for us, big lefty. We're on zero baseball dollars, so the walk-on term is a tough one to swallow for some people because you see it as I'm not a valued member of that team. But when you understand the behind the scenes and the timing of how recruiting works and what money gets spent, when and why, it's really hard to try to measure all those uncontrollables yourself when you're taking that word personal. So try to get that word out of there and dive into how much true interest there is, how much true opportunity there is, and back to that word fit. Figure out if the right fit is there for you, and usually that will determine how well you move through a program. Our best players are quote-unquote walk-ons, whatever that means. They don't have any baseball money.
Well, in my situation and in Division II, it's kind of wide variety of scholarship amounts and things. Basically, at San Francisco State, I have 1 and 1.2 scholarships. So I have kids who have $500. Most that any kid has in my program right now is $2,500 scholarship. Nobody's getting rich. Like Greg said, half of my starting team are so-called walk-ons, not receiving any athletic money. But it's the fit, it's the opportunity. They may get some financial aid, work study, some of those things you try to package together. But walk-on is just like, don't get hung up on that. You're going to get an opportunity to play. You're going to get an opportunity to start or whatever it might be. I think that's the biggest thing, finding the right fit.
This question is generated to mainly Tony and Chris, but the coaches can also attest to this. I was just wondering the difference in work ethic from a high school perspective going into college.
I just had a conversation with a parent the other day about this. The best way for me to describe it is I thought I worked hard in high school until I got to college. And then in college, I thought I worked hard until I got to pro ball. I just feel like that's kind of how it progresses. You think you work hard, you work just as hard as everyone else, if not harder, and then you get to the next level and you realize, wow, everyone has my talent. What am I going to do to stand out? So you work even harder, and then you go to pro ball and you're really in a pool of, once you're in pro ball, anyone can make it to the big leagues at any time. So you just got to put in the work. I know in college it's a little more structured with lifting times and stuff like that. In pro ball, it gets a little different. But even this year where I was, I saw a lot of guys drop off in the middle end of the season. I started struggling. They just didn't put in the work anymore. And the guys that constantly battled from the beginning kind of got through the whole season. We ended up playing 150 games in 160 days, so it's a long one. So you got to put the work in the off season, beforehand, and all that. Kind of as the levels progress, you see how hard you have to work to have the success you want.
Yeah, the work is pretty much double when you're in college. Early fall, before we start practices and inter squad stuff like that, we're conditioning 3 days a week, lifting 3 days a week. And on top of that, you got, I think this semester I'm taking 17 units. So it's busy, and you got to work hard. I'm not sure what your guys' weight training or anything like that is now, but I know when I was here, I think we did it 2 days a week, and hardly you gotta read, you gotta keep up on your work, and then on top of it, you have 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. conditioning, you know, it's brutal. And it's tough, so, you know, it's a grind, and, you know, like Chris said, it only gets tougher once you get to the next level, so, you know, preparing you for a little bit of that, so.
While we're waiting for another question, I have one question. Simply because I've talked to a couple of parents about this. One who said that the family had spent so much money on showcases and private coaches and everything else, their kid had to get a scholarship. Otherwise, you know, I mean, basically paid for 2 years of college and all the stuff they paid beforehand. And then the one who said that they forewent all of that, no private coaches, no showcases, none of that, did what you said, and put some packages together on their own of their kid playing and practicing at the high school level. And it was just as successful. And didn't have to worry about it. They didn't get the scholarship, you know, all that money down the drain. How important is the private coach, the showcase? I mean, this is the age we live in, and it's exploding. And so for you as college coaches, how important is that? Or is it important?
Since I'm the old guy and have seen this whole thing evolve, I went to the first area code games. That's how old I am. You know, everybody wants to be in the area code games, right? It started out in Lodi at Tony Zucco Field. Bob Williams was the original owner or idea man. Basically, why he did it was to get his son a chance to play in front of some scouts. And Coach Jensen was one of the first coaches. He and Coach Bradford from St. Francis. And basically, when it first started, it was the high school coaches from certain area codes, California, got together and they played a tournament. They played to